The area was a good 20 yards off the trail. It had this overwhelming sense of dread. My nephew was around 13 at the time, and he was also weirdly terrified and felt uneasy. We left and immediately heard voices.
I gotta go potty.
Hello and welcome back to the Darkling Chronicles. It's Sunday, which can only mean one thing, another episode. And tonight, or today, should I say, because I release these quite early on a Sunday now, we're going to talk about the supernatural forest stories that I found on Reddit. As you know, I love it. I will go back to the ghost stories that people have sent me soon, because oh my God, I started scheduling on Instagram a few months ago and it has just blown up on there. And thank you to everyone who sent me stories. I've got so many. I need to actually sit down tonight and get more organized and actually go through them and see what on earth I'm going to be talking about next. People have been giving me recommendations on places I need to talk about. So just know that they've been noted down. One actually was from earlier that I'd never even heard of before. So I'm excited to have a look at that. Today has been a bit of a wild day. I didn't sleep very well last night. And yeah, it's, I've got that Sunday vibe, that Sunday chill vibe. So I thought, right, it's a good time to jump on, record a podcast. I've just released my Fleshgate podcast today. So you've got something to listen to. And I thought, do you know what? Let's just jump on a week ahead. Let's record the supernatural stories today because I need to get a bit more organized in my life. It will just make things a lot easier and I'll stop burning myself out. So yeah, I hope you've had a beautiful weekend so far. I've heard the weather's meant to change, which will be this week, which will be this time you are now listening to this podcast. So hopefully it's not too rainy, but if it is, nestle in, get settled down because we're going to talk about some supernatural forest stories because why the hell not, right? I don't have any updates for you, really. Feeling a bit overwhelmed with all of the comments and the messages that I've been getting. Some comments aren't very nice. I don't know why people feel the need to be like, yeah, you spoke too much, so I just scrolled on. It was like, well, you didn't just scroll on. You left me a bitchy comment and then you scrolled on. Also, I love it when people do that because they're not my people. If you don't want to, hear me waffle, you ain't my kind of people. Do you know what I mean? I just feel like, yeah, I tell ghost stories, but I just think it's cool to update you a little bit on here about, I suppose I've got the space more to do on here to update you about my day. I think that the thing that people don't like on Instagram is that I ask people to follow me because you have their interest in the first 3 seconds. And people are just such Amazon listeners now. They want it like yesterday. You've got to deliver them the story or they're like done. But do they not realize you can hold the screen down and make things go 2 times faster? Obviously they don't. They're not that savvy yet, but that's fine. We forgive them and we move on. I have just had a lovely, refreshing shower, so I apologise if you're watching the video of this. My hair's still wet, but I just couldn't be asked to dry it, It's hot. It will dry naturally. Probably frizzy, but that's fine. Now, let me get into the stories. Let me know in the comments how your week was, by the way, because you lot are amazing and I just love talking to you. So I've prepared this for you. And it's time now just to chill. Or, while you're cooking dinner, or whatever you want to do. Just don't cut your thumb off because I don't want to be responsible for that. And plus, I hate blood and gore and gross stuff, so I will pass out. I'm more of a ghost horror film person than I am a slasher film. I'm not doing the slashers. I'll leave that to someone else. Now, there is something deeply ancient about the fear of the wilderness after dark. Long before electricity flooded the world with artificial light, human beings understood instinctively that night changed the landscape around them. Forests that felt peaceful during the day became unknowable after sunset. Familiar paths dissolved into darkness. Every distinct crack of a branch or movement within the trees carried the possibility of danger. And for thousands of years, survival depended upon respecting what waited beyond the edge of the firelight. Perhaps that's why camping stories disturb us so deeply. Because unlike haunted houses or abandoned asylums, the wilderness is real. Most of us have experienced that strange psychological shift that occurs once civilization disappears behind us. That's why I don't go camping, FYI. I have camped. I don't mind it. I wouldn't do it now. Not after reading all of the stories in the Appalachian Mountains. I know I'm not there, but I still don't want to experience something sneaking around my tent in the middle of the night. No, thank you. Or Mr. Ballen's stories where it's just freaky as hell and there's something walking around outside. It's just not a bit me. It's not. The moment where mobile phone signals vanish, roads become scarce, and the comforting illusion of control begins quietly slipping away. Out there, surrounded by endless woodland or isolated mountains, human beings suddenly become aware of how small and vulnerable they actually are. And the unsettling truth is that many of the most terrifying supernatural stories do not begin in the most obviously haunted places at all. They begin during ordinary camping trips, friends gathered around fires deep within the forest, families parked beside the lake beneath enormous empty skies, hikers taking shortcuts through unfamiliar terrain, and hunters hearing movement beyond the trees long after midnight. At first, everything feels normal, and then everything changes. Sometimes it begins with silence. Campers often describe the atmosphere shifting unnaturally, as though the forest itself has suddenly stopped breathing. The insects disappear, the wind dies completely. Entire stretches of woodland become so still that people instinctively lower their voices without understanding why. Other stories begin with sounds, footsteps circling the tents in the middle of the night, children laughing deep in the forest where nobody else should be, whistles echoing between trees, heavy movement outside the reach of the firelight, and voices calling names from impossible distances. And then there are the stories that become difficult to explain rationally at all. Encounters involving figures standing motionless between trees, campsites where people wait to discover footprints surrounding their tents, strange lights moving silently through remote woodland. Entire groups of experienced hikers becoming overwhelmed by the same unshakable feeling that something nearby is watching them. What makes these stories so effective is not simply the supernatural element itself, but the setting in which they occur. Camping strips away almost every layer of modern security that human beings rely upon psychologically. There are no locked doors separating you from the darkness outside, no streetlights, no nearby neighbours, no comforting sense of civilization continuing around you while you sleep. Just a thin fabric between yourself and the wilderness. Ah, how lovely. And perhaps that is why so many paranormal experiences seem to emerge from forests, mountains, and isolated campsites. Because once human beings are removed from the artificial light and constant distraction, the imagination begins returning to something much older and far more instinctive. Stories involving unexplained figures in remote woodland, voices echoing through empty forests, glimpses beyond the campfire, and moments so unnerving that people abandon campsites entirely before sunrise. And as these stories unfold, you may begin noticing something unsettling about them. Regardless of whether the witnesses believe they encountered ghosts, creatures, or simply the effect of fear and isolation, almost every story arrives at the same emotional conclusion. At some point during the night, deep in the wilderness, they become aware that something else was out there with them. Ooh, creepy intros. We're here for it, aren't we? We love it. Now, I did find these stories on Reddit, like I said. And this first story that I found is from someone called Goat of Mendez. They wrote it 11 years ago, which is a very long time ago. And this person says, a couple of years ago, my brother bought a large piece of land out in the middle of nowhere, about 30 miles or so from cell phone reception. It was quiet. There was no light pollution, no paved roads, and not a lot of people around. Shortly after he bought the place, two of my brothers, and they put in brackets, the landowner and another, me and our family spent a weekend camping on the land and doing our best to clean it up. People had used it as a dump. There were many downed trees, etc. On the second night we camped there, I woke up in the middle of the night to take a leak. That means a wee. I'm sure you guys know what that means. As I was walking to the bushes in the dark, I realised that I could faintly hear music. This didn't strike me as odd because I knew my brother had a radio in his camper. I finished up and went back to sleep with no further thought on the matter. The next morning at breakfast, I mentioned the radio and music. Several other people recalled waking in the night and hearing music, but no two people heard the same music. Finally, my brother, who had brought the radio, woke up. I asked him about the music and he seemed a bit freaked out. He woke up sometime during the night and went outside to smoke. He heard the music as well and had assumed it was someone else. I should mention that he was the only one with a generator and a radio. It wasn't his radio we heard. It wasn't anyone else's either. I have been back several times, but I'm a bit freaked out by that place. I have fun while I'm there, but I'm almost always armed and don't sleep in a tent anymore. I sleep in my SUV with the doors locked. It may sound kind of dumb, but realising that everyone heard different music when there were no people, no functional radios and no electricity is quite creepy. I get it. I think we'll let you have that one. This next one is from someone called Angry River Otter, and they wrote it 8 years ago. And they say, I was probably 16 or 17 and bombing home from a party on my skidoo late one night. Anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's like the snowmobile things. You might have seen it in like James Bond films, you know. It was a full moon, cloudless night, and the moon illuminated the hills and the trees of the northern prairie landscape. I darted between the forests along the trail I knew well. Ahead was the river, but my trail crossed it in a place that was reliably frozen solid, especially in cold Februaries like this one. As I approached the river, my trail was a narrow path woven between poplar and black spruce. All of a sudden, a massive moose, silver in the moonlight, stepped into the trail, blocking my path completely. I hit the brake, almost flying over the handlebars, and they've put in brackets, but I was on a Bravo, so I wouldn't have ever had enough speed to fly off, haha, and skidded to a stop just before the river. Shaking, I looked up and into the bush and saw absolutely no evidence of a moose. I figured maybe I was tired and maybe shouldn't have had a couple of beers earlier on. I was still a bit out of sorts as I sat back down and started slowly towards the river. Except, as soon as I saw the river, I saw that it was open. Had I not stopped, I would have hit the open water going too fast to stop in time. On a sled too small to slow to skip across it, I would have fell into the river all alone at -20. If I had made it out, nobody would have been there to help me and I would have certainly died. I have no explanation for that moose. I'm pretty skeptical. I don't believe in ghosts, but that night, that moose saved my life. And if that is what ghosts are like, well, I'm not afraid of ghosts. That's a pretty cool story, that one. This next story is from someone called Definitely Not Aliens, and they wrote it 8 years ago. And they put, firstly, I do not believe in ghosts, the paranormal, or anything of that sort. But here's my story. I was camping at a lake. Took an afternoon hike around the area with my nephew. I go off trail quite often and did so towards the lake. I came across a crevice in the rocks and went into the area by taking off my backpack and squeezing through. The area was ringed entirely with boulders and the crevice was the only way in. There were rocks/logs arranged around the fire pit in the middle, and there was a structure, a primitive outhouse. It had to have been built in place and carried in piece by piece. Inside the outhouse was a bucket with a child's cartoony potty on top, like you'd use for potty training. Sticks were hung all over, tied in figures like the Blair Witch. Stones stacked in little piles. The area was a good 20 yards off the trail. It had this overwhelming sense of dread. My nephew was around 13 at the time, and he was also weirdly terrified and felt uneasy. We left and immediately heard voices. It was a remote area and there'd been no other people around. Instead of heading back towards the voices and the trail, we cut back towards the lake and decided to head back to camp along the lake instead of the trail. As soon as we did, we heard footsteps through the bush, and it spooked us, and we ran to the lake's edge. There were more stacked stones and stick people, so we bolted again. Eventually, we decided we'd scared ourselves enough and laughed. When we came across a large rock outcropping, we cut back into the forest. As soon as we get about 5 feet into the forest, that unsettling feeling returns. By now, we're very far off the trail, and there were no people on the shore. Very distinctively, I hear a small child laughing in the woods. My nephew, not easily scared, grabbed my arm and started to run. I hear more voices as we sprinted to the shore. As soon as we hit the lake edge and cleared the forest, the hairs on the back of my neck went down and it felt instantly warmer. We didn't go back into the woods and kept hearing footsteps behind us. It was following us. When we get near the camp, we both are sweating and terrified and sprinted the last few 100 feet because we had to go through the forest. There was nobody around. We both heard it. We refused to go back to the area to prove there were sticks bound together or the hidden clearing with the rocks and the figures in the woods. The rest of the people laughed, but we heard the laughter and footsteps and never saw anyone. I'm guessing that they mean that the people at the camp laughed at them. And then they finished by saying, I don't believe in anything paranormal, but someone or something followed us through the woods that day, and I never saw another soul the whole way back or while we were on that trail. When my sister suggested that camping ground again, I refused. I don't blame you. It sounds absolutely horrendous. So this next story is from someone called the Fire Bear. He wrote it 8 years ago, and he says that he used to run a children's away camp. And his boss literally looked like a Viking, 2 meters tall, 300 pounds, 150 kilos, glorious beard. And this is the one story his boss told him. And his boss said it scared the life out of him. So he says, we had just finished a nightly camping ceremony, you know, songs and schmores and shit. At that time, I was raking the coals and pouring water on it to douse the fire. My boss was watching the little kiddos and our counsellors walk back to their cabins. On the other side of the clearing, maybe 300 meters, he kept seeing the shadow pop in and out of the woods, like someone checking to see if the coast was clear. Just as he was about to walk over to see who it was, he sees it burst out of the woods, running full tilt towards our centre cabin. To this day, he says that he didn't see feet. It ran up a long slope with no loss in momentum. Just as it was going to cross the front of one of the lit windows of the cabin, it vanished in a dark cloud. A few years later, when he felt comfortable sharing what happened with me, we had one of our teenage counsellors who ran for his school test it out. He didn't come close to matching its stride. To this day, we don't know what the fuck that was. Ugh. Do you know what? I don't know if you guys have ever seen Fear Street, but they've got literally different years that they do. I've just literally Googled it because I need to talk to you guys about it. They do, 1994, 1666, 1978 and 1994. And if you haven't seen them, you have to go on Netflix and watch them because they are brilliant. I actually watch them alone. I am a little bit of a skipper sometimes. If there is a gory scene, as I said before, I do not like gore in horror films. I prefer ghost horror films because I'd rather jump than see someone's guts be slashed out of their body. I just can't cope with it. But Fear Streets are incredible. They are just what they are. They're a little bit cheese, they're a little bit like not. But this story reminds me of that creepy, just eerie feeling of being in the woods with a group of people and just not knowing what can happen. If you guys have watched it, let me know what you think of it in the comments. Some of you might think it was crap. I thought it was really good because I didn't have any expectations of it. I didn't really like the 1566 one. I think my favourite ones were the other two, to be honest. But that's what that story reminds me of, and it's creepy as hell. I didn't like it. This next story is from someone called Butterfly French Fly. So this person says, and I'm probably going to butcher this, I got lost in the Kaveri River State Park in Missouri overnight wearing nothing but a swimsuit. It was summer and we'd been tubing in the river all day, drinking a bit. My friend and I didn't realise it was getting late. We got lost on our way back to the car, and once the sun had set, there was literally no light. The trees blocked out the moon and the stars. No light, no shades, like an empty vacuum. There was no sounds. It was like everything turned off after the sun went down. You had to feel your way through the forest. Might as well have gone blind. The alcohol had skewed my internal compass, but the fear of being stuck in the forest sobered me up, and I felt like I had to at least try to find my way back. When the sun sets, the forest drops about 20 degrees or so in temperature. So not only could we not see, but we were freezing. At one point we got separated. I fell in the brush, broke my flip-flops and sprained my ankle. so I could barely move anywhere. Honestly, I started questioning if I was going to make it out of those woods. We eventually found each other by following each other's voices and decided it would be best just to stay put until sunrise. She fell asleep. I don't know how, because all I could think was that something was going to eat me. There's those people in there who can just fall asleep anywhere. Like, those people are just unusual. Like, they sleep on trains, they sleep on planes, they sleep in the car when you're going over bumps, on the motorway as well. They don't give a shit, do they? They just sleep anywhere. It's the people who can fall asleep in a chair that's not a reclining chair that we need to worry about, because how they'll wake up like the bent neck lady off the Haunting of Hill House. Out of the pitch black, about 100 yards from us, stood three iridescent blue figures. They looked like people, but really, really skinny. Their light was very dim, like a really low frequency UV light. It was the first sign of light or shadow I'd seen since the sun had set. At first, I just thought I was losing my mind. But I closed my eyes and opened them, and they were still there. They moved around a little bit, like they were communicating with each other or something, but never got any closer to me. They just stood there watching me. The only way to describe them was that their movements were very wispy. In that forest, I was more terrified than I'd ever been in my life. But when I saw them, I suddenly felt safe. I feel like I should have been afraid of whatever it was, but I was so traumatized from everything that they brought me a strange kind of peace. It felt like they were looking out for me and that everything was going to be okay. I'll never forget that. When morning came, someone had sent a search party, and eventually we were found, over a mile away from my car. Somehow we'd been turned in the opposite direction of my car, and we were so deep in the brush it took a 15-minute hike on a sprained ankle and 20 minutes on a four-wheeler just to reach civilization. There was an EMT and our freaked out parents waiting for us. This was 2011. Still no clue what it was that I saw. We were told that a girl died in that park only a couple of weeks before, under the same circumstances. I'm glad that we made it out alive. God, they're so lucky, aren't they? It sounds like this place, you go there, you have a good time, you have a few little drinks, one thing leads to another, and before you know it, you're butt naked pretty much, half naked in a forest, not really knowing where you are. Spraining your ankle was just a cherry on the top of the cake, wasn't it, really? So if you're out there and you live in Missouri and you've been to this river, just be careful, okay? Please be careful. We don't want you going that way. That would be the worst way to die. I don't know about you guys, like I hate being too hot or too cold, but my goodness, if I was too cold, that would be it for me. I do hate extremes in weather, but I mean, who doesn't? But like, nah, that would be a horrible way to die. This one, there's 8 months ago, and they put, here is my personal story. When I was in my teens, I was driving home to the reservation. It was dark and near midnight. I had to keep a lookout on the side of the roads since cows love to roam on the roads. Whilst looking at the side of the road, I saw an animal standing in the bushes. Then I saw the face of the animal, a coyote, but it had no eyes and the mouth was gaping open. I was stunned and trying to understand, what did I just witness? Then it came across my mind, best to get home ASAP. A few miles down the road, I saw it again, but it was closer to the road. I cursed out loud, shit, as I sped up. Yeah, I don't blame you. This is terrifying. I turned my eyes to the road, not to look at it. The third time, it was on the right of the road, on the white lines. If I were to drive past it, it would have been able to touch my truck. I went to the other side of the road and kept driving. I managed to get home and ran into my house. I was worried it might have followed me, but thankfully, I never experienced anything else after the third time. This is why I avoid driving the reservation at dark. That is horrific. I mean, I swear these things only happen in America. It's just too scary to function. I don't know how you guys function over there. What do? You must just be used to it. I know that a lot of people in America probably still don't have experiences. Not everyone's having these things happen, but well, I don't know. I just think it's nuts that all of the crazy shit happens in America. I know that we had a black-eyed children's story here in Cannock Chase, and I'm sure there are lots of other terrifying stories because England is very old. The UK in general is very old. There's a place near me that has houses that were built in the 15th century, and the doors are so small, I don't even know how people fit their torso through the front door. I get buying a house that's got character. I do want a house that's got character, but that is too much character for me. When you can't bring your shopping, your Tesco shopping or wherever you shop, in the front door because you can't even like you got to bend like some kind of paranormal creature to get in the door. That's probably not the one, is it? There is a knobhead outside revving his motorbike, and if there's one thing I cannot stand, it's men who think that loud sounding cars and motorbikes sound cool. I just can't. I can't deal with it. No one thinks you sound cool except for other people like you. When you go past someone's house with that loud sounding exhaust at 11 o'clock at night, people just want to punch you in the face. Maybe I'm a bit chewy today. I probably am a bit tired. Sorry about this, guys. But do you agree? Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you agree or not. Right, we've got a few more stories here. This one is by someone written The Moderate Me, and they wrote it 2 years ago. So this person says, my dad and I rented a ranch house in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma. It was about 20 miles in one direction just to get to town, and the house was about half a mile from the highway. Built in 1904, it was a beautiful house. We both loved it. We loved the isolation, the space, the layout. It was awesome for the first couple of months before weird shit started happening. Most notable for me, and they put in brackets, my dad had his own set of experiences, was a figure I saw 2 times about 20 feet from my window. The first time I saw it, I didn't really process what I was seeing. I stared at it for about 5 or 6 whole seconds before a little orange glow from a cigarette barely lit up the face enough to see that it was human. Then I realised it was an old man wearing a big, sharp straw hat. I didn't fully understand what I was looking at, but just as it dawned on me, he was gone when I blinked. I told my dad, and I think he believed me, but kind of just brushed it off because he didn't say much about it. A while later, probably a month or so, I saw it a second time when I randomly woke up. It was hard enough to sleep anyway, and I told my dad again what I saw. This time, he told me he'd seen it too. I get goosebumps writing this. Oh, God, it's so creepy. Being out in the middle of nowhere with all the forest around you or woods around you just sets the tone for something quite different to happen. This next story is from someone called Lo-Fi Space Station, and they wrote it 2 years ago. And they've put, it was during the summer, and I was alone babysitting my dad's dogs. It was late around 1 a.m. when I let them out for the last time of the night, and I heard a noise out in the woods. I thought nothing of it. It was probably a bear or a deer just walking around the back. But the dogs were loud. They just kept barking and barking. I'd had enough and cut the potty break early. 7 a.m. comes around and I wake up to the dogs barking again. I think nothing of it because that's what they do when they want to be let out. I let the puppies out first, put them out in the pen, and as I was getting ready to let the mama out, I heard it again, the walking around and rustling. I stop what I'm doing and look up. I start scanning the tree line when I heard a man screaming for help over and over again. No other words, just help, help, help. I grab my phone and my dad's gun. I'm standing near the edge of his yard and I yell back, hello? Do you need me to call the police? Instead of answering back, I heard him getting closer. Help, help, help. Over and over again, slowly coming closer and getting louder, but I couldn't see him. The trees and the bushes were too thick. So I call 911, walking further away from the edge of the property. 911 picks up. They say they'll send cops, the ambulance, the fire truck, and then they cut out. I lost service. No one is picking up, and the man was getting louder and louder. Help, help, help. No stopping at all, almost as if he didn't need to breathe. It was constant. Then I heard the sirens. The screaming stopped, and it was silent. The firemen and the paramedics pulled up and asked what had happened. I tell them and point out to where I heard the screaming. They suit up and start walking. They are out there for about 20 to 30 minutes and can't find anything. No one was out there. Then they leave me and I'm alone again. Oh, that's horrible. I would never babysit my dad's dogs again. That would be it. He'd be on his own. No, look after your own dogs. I'm not going to your property. No, thank you. We've only got 2 more left. So this one is, it's not really a name. It's OBXF4N24. And they wrote this 2 years ago. And they've said, this story belongs to my co-worker. She gave me permission to share it. Her husband is as calm as can be. He's no fun in haunted houses. He'll laugh, smile, and keep casually walking. He never believed in ghosts or the paranormal. A long time ago, they purchased a large piece of property in the country where they planned to build their dream house. 8 years ago, they put their plans in motion. The first step was to pour a concrete foundation for his shop. He is a successful large engine mechanic and owns his own business. Part of the property would be dedicated to a building, a larger shop, and more bells and whistles. They received word on a Tuesday that the foundation was poured, and that Thursday, my friend's husband drove to the property during his lunch break to take a look. It was a bright, sunny day. He was alone. He didn't have a cell phone with him. He left it in his truck. He was walking the perimeter of the shop when he heard, clear as a bell, just over his shoulder, a male voice say, "Get off my property." It was deep, menacing, and a gravelly voice, and he swung around and no one was there. They live in their dream home on their property today, and according to my friend, her husband still gets goosebumps now and then, but she's never had an experience. That's pretty cool. He obviously, this ghost is very territorial. It must have been his property, and he must still be there just roaming around. Now, this is the last one, and it's from someone called Fluff Bolan. And they've put, "What did I see in the forest?" And they start by saying, "Every summer, my family and relatives rents a cabin in different parts of Sweden, and it has always been wonderful. But this one time, when I was around 12 or 10 years old, I saw something that still sticks with me 13 years later. We rented a cabin in the upper south of Sweden, far from any neighbours or cities. We were staying up late one night playing cards, and I had just got a laser pen from my grandpa. Around 12 or 1 in the middle of the night, I went outside to see how far my pen could reach in the forest. I was standing on the grass a few steps away from the cabin and a few steps away from the tree line. It was a full moon and I was not at all afraid or feeling creeped out from the dark forest and just stood there playing with the laser. But suddenly, I got a really bad feeling, a mixture of true fear and being watched. I looked around, but it was just me there until I saw a white face with black, hollow eyes among the trees. Even though the eyes were black holes, I could see it was looking at me as it passed by, like it was walking very fast, but its face was turned to me. Ugh, that's so eerie. It had a black hooded cape and long hair hanging down under the hood. It was really tall, like 2.5 or 3 meters, and moved inhumanly fast. Also, the silence was so loud, it made no sound when I should have heard branches snapping and leaves rustling when it moved, but there was nothing. I just froze when I saw it and didn't know if I actually saw what I saw, but I did not want to find out if it was real or not, so I ran back inside and did not go out alone again. I have no idea what it was that I saw, but I have never seen the same thing again. I remembered it when I heard a story about someone seeing a pale face with black hair in a lake. When something's moving really quickly, yet its face is looking at you and there's no branches or anything snapping. I really like walking in a forest near me and it's just making me not want to go. It's making me not want to go. It's giving me bad vibes. But if you've got a creepy story that happened to you when you were camping, you were out in the forest for a walk one day, or, some woodlands or anything like that, email me, the Darkling Chronicles 25@gmail.com. I will put my email address in the description. Send me a ghost story, send me ghost pictures, ghost videos, whatever you want to send me that's supernatural related. I would love to talk to you. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I wanted to get something, out that was a little bit creepy because I just really love woodland and ghost foresty stories. I think that they are eerie as hell. And a lot of people can't explain what's going on in these situations. It must be really terrifying when you're in that situation. You must think that you're not going to live. But then when you do live to tell the tale, the relief must be fantastic. I have actually picked out some more stories to do with sort of supernatural things happening in woodlands and forests and places like that. So I will probably record another episode like this. So yeah, send me your stories. I'd love to read them. And I will catch you guys in the next, where I will probably waffle on more and hopefully read you some cool stories. Now, until the next episode, make sure you take care of yourself. Do something nice for yourself. Make yourself a lovely dinner. Go for a lovely walk. Set some time aside for yourself just to chill. I know that all of our life circumstances are very different. Some of you might have children. Some of you might be on your own and feeling lonely. Some of you might be having everyone around you and you just feel really overwhelmed and you want some peace. Whatever your situation is, try and do something for yourself. Try and ease your mind and just relax, because it's so hard, isn't it, these days, just to find that time to switch off. Everything is just always so on all the time. And I know I can say that, and I'm a fine one to talk because I'm doing this podcast. And it's another thing to binge. It's another bit of, content and entertainment. But hopefully you can listen to something like this while you do something that you enjoy. Or maybe this is your time that you enjoy to yourself. And if that's the case, I love that for you. I absolutely love that for you. Thank you so much for listening. If you're not already, please make sure you follow. It really helps out my channel. You guys are the best, and I'll catch you in the next one.